Welcome everybody for the second time to now the virtual REI Academy. So this is much more single family based. Um, uh, Jane and Sharon are partners. We've known them for a long time. They used to live up here in the Baltimore area and then abandoned us and moved down to beautiful Florida where it's nice and warm all the time and there's beaches and stuff like that. But they have had incredible success from the single family side. I don't do single families anymore. Nicole still does some, but these guys are really in the hunt all the time and have had great success. Over 100 deals. I don't know when they're getting to 200, but I'm sure it's sometime in the near future. But the interesting thing about what they do is, number one, they're just great people. They've got a lot of integrity. They do what they say. What they're talking about, they're actually doing at the same time. And they're just really creative. I mean, there's got to be 100 different ways out there, or I don't know, however many ways there are to actually acquire properties besides just buying something with a check or a hard money lender or whatever it may be, or wholesaling something. And they put all these strategies to use on a daily basis. So I can't think of anybody else better than to teach about creative deal structures than you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Appreciate that. So again, this is going to be brought to you by Virtual REI Academy. So go ahead and check out our website and support if you have any questions. And obviously this will be up on YouTube at the end of the week. So we try to, have a good topic that the people can go back and listen to. And then we have courses on our website there. So let's get started. Tonight we're gonna Sharon was supposed to do this one, but she has laryngitis, so you get me. It's gonna be on creative deal structures, and you can go ahead and switch. Flip. So just quick agenda with some stuff: lease with an option to purchase, owner finance, subject to deals, master lease, and options. So it's different ways to buy things except cash. And early on, that's all we knew how to do was buy with cash. So it wasn't, we didn't think about all these other things. And, probably back in 2017, we could have got into some other owner finance or subject to leases, different things, but you kind of learn from who you learn from. And if you keep yourself in that box, then that's all you're kind of going to learn. So we knew how to find a property, buy it with cash, and either rent it, wholesale it, flip it, or keep it. So that was kind of our, for the first couple of years, that's all we kind of knew until kind of the eyes got opened and you see different things, you meet different people, and you kind of move on. So next slide.
Oops, I thought I could do it that way. There you go.
So these are just a few common strategies we use. There's different ways to structure a deal. There's probably a million different ways to structure a deal. And sometimes it makes a deal that looks like a dud actually doable because, there's different ways that it'll still cash flow, even if on paper, it doesn't look like that good of a deal. And that's why these different strategies work, because it's not just a cash deal. Next slide. So a lease with an option to purchase, a lot of people just, a lot of people throw out the term option, and that's all people think is a lease with the option to purchase. There's a million different options that you can do, maybe not a million, but there's a lot. But lease with an option to purchase is the most common, I think, that most people know about. And in investor talk, it's lease with the option. In tenant talk, a lot of times they just will say, hey, can I rent to own? So they don't kind of know the difference. And there is a little bit of difference with them, and then there's a difference with seller finance. So the contract is with the non-refundable option fee from the renter. Typically, it's a right to purchase the house in whatever period of time you determine. That can be 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, it can be 20 years. However you want to work that is, typically it's a shorter term. We typically do 2 to 3 years. We don't like to extend it out that much. But say they want to do it in 2 years, and then, they get to year 2 and they don't quite have the money or the wherewithal to get out of it. you can extend it with another option fee and then just amend the contract. And then the homeowner typically pays for taxes and homeowner insurance, and the renter pays renter's insurance on this one. And then the rehab or upkeep can be negotiated in the contract. It can be anything from you take care of anything under $1,000, $500. If it's something big like roof, air condition, then typically the owner's going to take care of it. You're not going to expect the option person to do that. And then if the renter performs and exercise the option fee is deducted from the purchase price. So say it's a, $20,000 option fee that just comes off the top. They get the house and then they cash you out and you're done with that one. So that's a little bit about a lease with an option. Next slide, please, James. And then this is just this one kind of came full circle. So we purchased this one in Englewood, Florida, one of the few that we actually are close to. But we acquired this block style back in 2020. It was during COVID, and we acquired it on a lease with the option to purchase for $135 with an option fee of $10,000. And this one was a little bit different. It had the person that was in there had bought it on a lease option, but they didn't exercise it. Then they also didn't pay rent and they wouldn't move. It was during COVID and everybody was just, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The owner actually didn't want to deal with it anymore. And he said, if you just take it over as is with the tenant, your responsibility to get them out. So because of the prices in Florida, and that was such a good price at the time, we knew that area was going to go up. It was appreciating pretty quickly. We thought it was a good deal. We could get them out pretty quickly, and we did. A lot of people thought you couldn't get people out, but you could get them out with different things. It wasn't not just paying the rent, it was the upkeep of the house, the dogs that they shouldn't have had, the crime element, whatever, to get people out. So we did get them out. And then we so we bought it for 135 with the option fee of 10,000. And then we exercised our option and purchased the property in 2022, but it's been rented since 2020. We rented it for 1,500, and then after Ian, those folks moved out. There was a little bit of a damage, and then our contractor moved in while we were getting him down here and settled. And then so now we have we have the house. We already exercised our option, and we recently found a buyer who's going to be signing a lease this week. And he's going to do it with a lease option to purchase. And the house is now it's probably all fixed up beautiful. It's worth 280. We're giving him a little bit of a discount at 240. He's going to come in with a 20,000 option fee. And, they're slated to just, get their credit fixed, do what they got to do and exercise the option in 2 years. So this one kind of came full circle with, we bought it on a lease option. We're selling it on a lease option. It was a rental for a little bit. And that's just one thing that if you just look at this house, if we would have tried to buy it for, 135 with cash, maybe the numbers didn't make sense. But at the end of the day, doing some different strategies kind of worked on that one. So next slide. So owner finance is, it's a little bit of flexibility. It's similar to a lease option. You can spread it out as many years as you want to accomplish not only what you want, but what the buyer wants. So this is one that you could, if you have private money on it for less, then, you're going to kind of wrap it around that other one. But you're essentially the bank. You're no longer the landlord. They're not calling you to fix the roof. They're not calling you to fix the air condition, the toilets, the tub, whatever. If it breaks, they're kind of responsible for it. We add into our contract that it refers to a rental if the homeowner breaks the contract. So it's easier to evict than file for foreclosure. So once they stop paying, it kind of reverts back, and then you can evict as opposed to going through the whole foreclosure procedure. A servicing company can service the note. So you write the note and then they service it. It gets reported to the credit union. So it also builds the homeowner's credit score, because the end goal is you want them to cash you out so you can rinse and repeat, take that money, go buy something else and do it again. The note can be recorded to protect everyone's interest involved. And the note can also, here's another strategy. So the note can be sold to a note buyer investor. You can sell the whole note, partial note, the option, like you name it, you can do that with the note. So, you can cash out a partial amount. You might, say, I'll sell you whatever, 40 months of the note, however much, and then they cash you out for a little bit so you get some cash to go buy something else. So a lot of flexibility with owner finance. There are some, you got to pay attention to Dodd-Frank, and you can't just, say, hey, I'm going to put you in the house. You can't afford it. You want it to be a win-win for everybody. So, we typically want it less than the normal rents in the area. So if the market rent is 2,000, we want to put them around 1,700 so they can afford the taxes and insurance. And we want it to be fairly equal. So that person can say, I can either own my own house or I can live in an apartment with a bunch of people where I can't have my dog and, cat and whatever, horse, whatever else, that it's equivalent. So it's a no brainer that, hey, I'll just buy the house. Next slide. So here's an example of one of the owner finances. This number is crazy, but we acquired this through the HUD Home Store in 2019 at like 19,700. We found a family who was really happy for the opportunity at home ownership. Everything was awesome. They had a down payment. We had the sale price at 69. There was still plenty of equity in the house that, they could go refinance out pretty quickly if they wanted to. They had a 10% interest amortized for 25 years. That's one of the things with, Dodd-Frank, you have to keep it at the, prime plus, I don't know what it is off the bat, but you can't, we can't go charge people 20%. You don't want to do that. That's not right. You can raise it now because the prime's up, but we typically are around 9.5 or 10%. And then that's amortized for 25 years. So it is just, you're like the bank. You're just a little higher interest because you're taking a risk. A lot of the owner finance have some credit challenges, and that could be, from anything taking care of family, medical bills, student loans, any of that kind of stuff. So basically, you're taking a chance on them. It's a little higher interest, but then you also try to help them get their credit repaired, because at the end of the day, you want them to cash out a little bit early. If they don't, fine, but sometimes you're just like, okay, come on, you've been here 10 years, let's cash you out and get you on the right track. This one was a little bit weird. Everything was great. They always paid, life was good, but then there was some kind of domestic incident, whatever. They weren't going to stay together. And they were pretty cool. We were cool with them, and they just vacated the house. They just said, one was going one place, the other was going the other place. They just signed the house back over. Had they not, we would have went back to that eviction and not foreclosure, but they walked away. So 2023, we just repeated the process. They gave us the house back, found another family that's very happy to be there, and they've since moved in. They've been good on paying. They love the house. They came from I think a mobile home in Delaware or something, so they're very happy with the land, the house, and all that good stuff. So next slide. Subject to. So here's just another strategy that you're basically taking, and let me go back to owner financing. So you can actually purchase houses on owner finance too. Um, so it's not only selling, but it's also purchasing. You can, there's a lot of investors that'll sell them, and as long as you can get a good deal that works for you, if you can take that owner financing and your mortgage is at 1,000, but you can rent it for 1,800 and it makes sense, you can go ahead and also purchase that. And then subject to real estate deals or a type of creative financing arrangement where a buyer purchases a property subject to the existing mortgage or financing in place. So in essence, you're just taking over the existing loan, and assuming ownership of the property. And there's, there's a lot of little things you got to know about the insurance and, different things and the paperwork, because you don't want the person that's selling the house to go and call the bank and say, hey, I'm turning all this over to this person and they're just taking the loan over. There's, things that you in place, but essentially that's all you're doing is taking over their loan, and then you're paying the mortgage. The contract is usually completed with a title attorney. You can offer money to the owner to help solve a problem or help them move, or maybe get into an assisted living if they're older, or there's just a lot of things that people want to walk away from a house. I think this one's a little harder now because people have such good interest rates from, back in the day. Now we're up to, I don't know, 7.256, whatever. But so a lot of these people had 2%, 3, 4.5. So they're not as quick to just, kind of say, well, I don't like living in this house now, because they can't go and find something else. It's harder to qualify. Um, and one thing with the subject too, and can't, say this enough, you have a responsibility to make the mortgage payments on time. You're essentially telling them that you're going to step in, you're going to make the payments. So if you can't make the payments, that's not what you agreed to, and you're not helping them out. Part of it, sometimes you're taking it over because people are behind, or, so not only do you catch them up, but then you're paying the mortgage to help build their credit up, or so they can go buy something later. But, if you say you're going to make the mortgage payment, you definitely need to make the mortgage payment. I mean, it's, if you got to eat ramen noodles to make that mortgage payment, you promise somebody to do that. So you need to do that. There's going to be some little bumps and stuff with the company, if they change a processor, or so you need to keep a good relationship. And one thing we see now, and we've never done this, or I've never even inquired about it. You have laryngitis and now you're coughing during my presentation? Wow. Anyway. So one thing, I've seen a lot of wholesalers and they're wholesaling subject twos, and I've never called or inquired about it, but to me that's a little iffy or sketchy, or whatever you want to call it, because they pretty much went to that person and said, I'm promising to make this payment, but then they're just going to wholesale it to somebody that they don't know or they haven't met. Or, I mean, I might just call up one day and just say, hey, yeah, I want the subject to, and see how that plays out. But, I haven't talked to the homeowner, and I'm talking to somebody else, and the wholesaler's kind of, they're expecting that other investor to be, on the up and up, but you just don't know. So not sure. I don't know if anybody else has run into that, but we haven't done that as yet. Okay, next slide. And this is just something we picked up subject to in Northport. This was a Ian house. We acquired it. It was on a canal, had some damage. It was the mortgage left was 235 at 4.75. Again, our contractor moved from Maryland with his son, and he's renting it now for 2,000 a month and making some of the minor repairs. The house is valued about 375. I think it's a little less now. We picked up the mortgage, got her out of a huge headache. And depending on what we do at the house, later on, we'll just probably kick her some extra money, or it just depends how long the contractor stays there or what we end up deciding to do with the house. But there's all things that you can do. Just very nice person. She just a lot of bad memories there with Ian and the family, her husband passing away, and just some other stuff. So she really just wanted to wash her hands, walk away, not worry about it. And so we were able to. And one of the things that she did, she dealt with us. She got a million postcards and flyers and everything else, but she ended up dealing with us because we were a local company, and I answered the phone. So, if you if you have bots and emails and people VAs and all that stuff, sometimes the older folks like to or anybody, they just like to deal with maybe somebody that's a live voice that's close by. So we met her right away, went down to the house and had a good rapport, and ended up, she's like, it'll solve all my problems in the world if you just, take over the mortgage. So next slide. Master lease, and this is, I think this is getting tossed around a lot now, but the property owner or the landlord enters into a lease agreement with the master leasee, granting them exclusive use of the property. I know they were doing this a lot back in a few years ago with the Airbnbs. So you would identify a good property and go in and say, I'll lease it, and then you do some, sublease it and use it for the Airbnbs. But the master leasee is now acting as the landlord, and they can sublease the property, and they kind of handle all the everything else within the building, office space, or the property. This can be flexible for traditional rentals, midterm, short term. Again, I know it was big a few years ago I think there was somebody out there teaching how to do that with the Airbnbs. The master leasee assumes all responsibility for managing the property, collecting rent, handling maintenance and repairs, and complying with lease terms. And then a threshold can be added for repairs, same as in the other one with the lease option. You can say, hey, we'll fix everything up to $1,000, but we're not going to do the roof, air condition, some of the big ticket items. And then the master lease typically provides renters insurance coverage. So a lot of people are doing this now. It's an easy way to get in a property with zero money. You identify a property, and maybe that landlord's having, issues that, they can't rent it, or they don't feel like dealing with it anymore, or any of that stuff. And it's also a good strategy to try to get into a like a portfolio. Kind of, if somebody's selling 20 properties, and basically the price is too high, but maybe you master lease it until you can kind of get the funds and get the ship righted. This is just a master lease in Sarasota. We control the house on a master lease. We pay about $970, which is super cheap here in Sarasota. We rent the unit out on a year lease to a family, $1,650. They pay the insurance and utilities. We keep the spread, so about $680 a month, and that's pretty cheap rent here for a single family house in Sarasota. So kind of win-win for everybody. Now I can't talk. Okay, next. Oh boy, options. Like, there's a million options, and we've not done many of them. I'm sure Nicole's probably done a few more than we have. Basically, options are just creating an option with the homeowner and making a written offer. And it can be anything, like, you're kind of solving the homeowner's problems when they don't want to sell their house. It's a binding contract that you're going to record at the courthouse to protect your interests. And then the homeowner can buy back the option at a later date if they want to keep the house, if something changes or whatever. And then they just make the offer. You capture the appreciation. There's strategic options, tactical options, magic options, buyback options, protection options. There's every kind of option you can imagine, and I don't begin to know all of them. Nicole could probably teach a class on options, and maybe we'll get her to do that. Next slide. So here's just a quick example. If you notice a tarp on a house and knocks on the door, and this was kind of an eye opener for us for a couple reasons. We had went to a class early on, and actually I think Nicole invited us to that class. And I can't remember. I think that was 2020. But up until then, we were doing just like a lot of cash and self finance and whatever. And then kind of Pete Fortunato and some of those other folks around here kind of, the light bulb went off. But so you see a tarp on a house, if you knock on the door and the homeowner can't afford to replace the roof. So the roof is kind of like, a small thing, maybe $5,000 to $10,000, whatever that is. So I, as the investor, would say, hey, I'll replace the roof right now so that you can live without leaks and mold and all that stuff. Just later on, I want an option to purchase the house at a future date at today's price. So say we did this back in 2020 and we saw a tarp on a roof and we knocked on the door and that worked for them, where we paid for the roof at 10,000 and the price was of the house was 250. And then now today's price is 450. And those folks are ready to move, go live with the grandkids, go, whatever it is that they're, then we could exercise that option. And we've got a pretty nice house for, 2020's price at, our price now. So just, that's one thing. And I don't know, a good friend of Nicole's and ours, Dave Wandell, was a roofer. So that was kind of, easy for him to do. Not only is he helping people, but obviously he was doing things at cost and, he had a roofing company and all that stuff. So basically he could do that. He was helping the people, putting a new roof on there, making them live comfortable. A lot of seniors, he helped those folks out that, couldn't afford the roof, and then, he could buy the house later on. Just another this is another one, and I'll talk a little bit about this with somebody that we just talked to on Monday. It can also work with homeowners who can't afford to pay property taxes, HOA dues, or special assessments. It's good to work out a date that's flexible and works for everybody. The homeowner may want to stay until the children are off to college or they go to assisted living. And then the investor will want to buy when the market conditions are favorable. So the option is you can, but you don't have to. So if, say you're in whatever, Huntsville, Alabama, and the market there has been booming like no tomorrow, and then all of a sudden it tanks, and you had an option to buy a house where it was worth 400 and it tanked down to 200, and maybe that doesn't work for you. So then you're like, you don't have to exercise your option. So, we were on another meeting on Monday, and, like the condos are really taking a hit down here because of Surfside, and they're doing all these 50-year inspections and, concrete work, and the special assessments are off the hook. They're in Miami. They have a special assessment of $100,000 coming down the pike. And yes, I did say $100,000. There's a lot of people on a fixed income that is their home, yet they don't have $100,000. They're seniors. There is some assistance where they might be able to get like 50,000, but they still need that other 50,000, to come in. So this maybe is a good opportunity for somebody to come in and say, hey, I'll pay your assessments for the option to buy it when, you either go to assisted living, go move in with your kids, you're just ready to leave Miami, whatever it is. You work out that deal, and then maybe that's a good deal for you that you've, for $50,000, you have the option to, buy a condo for 500,000. That's going to be worth $1 million, in a couple years or whatever. Right, and it works. That's another thing. The options are great for, especially like the smaller dollar, like the roof and different things for your self-directed IRAs. You can, just kind of, you can't use that money anyway, depending on age and whatever else. So if you put a roof on somebody's house for 10,000, it's just in your self-directed IRA. You buy the roof, and then, 10 years from now or whatever, you can exercise your option if those folks are ready to move, or they're going to buy you out for whatever percentage that you agree to. And then that's just going back into your self-directed. I think I've been talking quick. I'm not sure. I
You're
like
good.
it. Next slide. Oh, summary. The sky is the limit. So these are just a few strategies. There's tons more. A lot of these we have on the Academy website. And I mean, we're just scratching the surface here. Sale, lease back, short sales, burrs, tax liens, deeds. I mean, there are just a couple more. We have a lot of these courses on the Academy website, and it's really just, there's a million things you can do in real estate. So you got to find what you're interested in, or what you don't like, or what you do like. And then you kind of have to, figure what that is. But then there's a million ways you can buy real estate without cash. I mean, you need some, EMD money, like anybody that says you can get into real estate with zero money they're lying to you. You do need some money, whether it's EMD for, the HUD home stores, a cheap EMD at $500. Like marketing costs money, even if you write, and, we did this early on, we wrote out 1,000 postcards to get leads. We bought the list and we wrote out 1,000 postcards. So, there's a million things, but but I still had to buy stamps, right? You still had to buy the postcard. So you can trade time for money. If you have money, you can pay people to do it. If you don't have money or you don't want to spend the money because you're like, I'm not sure that this is like a good idea. Early on, we didn't really tell anybody what we were doing because everybody said it was not going to work. And the people we did tell, it's not going to work, you're going to fail, all this stuff. So basically, we did a lot of things kind of under the radar that like, oh, we'll just write out the postcards or we'll just do this, to save money, so you trade time for money. But there's a million ways you can get into houses without, you can trade houses. I like your house better, you know, 1031 exchanges, somebody needs to get out of something and they trade for your house or they buy your house for a little bit and then you get it back later and you capture appreciation, you capture, you use the depreciation. We've even heard of people that they need to take a loss, so they'll just they'll do private money just for something so they can show it as a loss. I mean, there's a million different ways. So it's kind of like your mind is your you know gateway there to find houses, like, so you don't have to just say, because you limit yourself if you can only, buy ARV minus repairs times 0.65, you limit yourself to what you can buy. So all these other strategies will help you get there faster. And I wish we would have knew about a lot of these earlier on because we gave up a lot of deals that we didn't know how to do. Next slide, that might be all. I'm not sure. Yep, that's it. And just something we're working on right now. There's a portfolio in Indiana we're looking at, and it's got some issues and whatever else, but we're trying to do a master lease or maybe an option, $100 a door until we get things up and running with the lease option to buy it later. So there's he obviously wants cash, but we obviously don't want to pay cash because we don't want to go in and buy 50 properties and half of them are a mess and we got to get them all up and running because that takes money. So if we can just get an option on them for $50 a door. And I might try to get him on here. We do know an investor that took down a pretty big portfolio. I think it was 30 to 40, and that's exactly what they did. They offered $50 a door. They got the option to buy them, and then they just did, small chunks, whether they rehabbed them or wholesaled them. They wholesaled some, flipped some, whatever. I might try to get Curtis on here to kind of talk about that one because that was kind of what sparked us, where we were like, maybe we'll just offer him $50 a door. He didn't take it, but we're working on something with James that, maybe a mobile home park that, kind of needs some work. So it's not like we're just going to give him cash because it needs work and stuff. So just different things, different strategies. And cool. Any questions? I know we kind of went quick, but we always talk longer.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Great. Thank you for sharing, by the way. It's very informative.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a question for you. So I'm in Maryland. I'm a contractor, licensed contractor.
Okay.
Many times homeowners come to me and they want to sell their property. So they already have a fixed rate in their mind, but they don't have the money to repair the property. So basically, thereafter that, any equities gained would be mine. So how do I protect myself in doing so and working with them?
So, as long as it's in the contract and it's recorded, we actually work with our contractor in Indiana. Like sometimes he'll just bring the work and we bring the house, or he brings the house and the work and we bring some of the funds. As long as it's on a JV agreement or, option agreement, and then it's recorded. that's the big thing is recorded. And that was another light bulb moment for us in 2020 because we had that house in Inglewood and everything was just like really cool. And we were all happy that was our first one. We were excited, but we didn't record it. We didn't know really to record it. And, that was like the one thing from that seminar. They're like, make sure it's recorded. And we're like, we didn't record it. So it all worked out. We got it recorded and taken care of. But yeah, that's,
So is it basically just like an option contract, just basically an agreement, and then you file it against the deed?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to file a mortgage to secure the option is what it needs to be called, a mortgage. Because particularly in Maryland, they don't want to record things other than mortgages. And so it's a mortgage to secure the option. And then you have an option contract with the seller that for the money you are putting up to fix whatever it is, that stands as your option, as what you are paying them. And sometime you have the right to buy the house at the current price or price plus 10% or something like that. And you need to probably have a conversation with them about what are their plans for the next 5 to 10 years? At what point would it be reasonable to expect them to move so you can actually exercise the option, right?
Yes, ma'am. So I probably should have told you a little more detail. So basically, it's a house they inherited from their parents. So they already have a home. They're just cleaning out all the furniture that was there, and the things they want to keep. But their intent is to sell. But it needs a lot of work in order to make it to market.
Well, then I would still use an option.
Okay.
So, but I would associate it. So, Jane talked about a lease option, but there is another variation that's called a lease purchase. So an option is the right to buy, but not the requirement. Whereas a lease purchase is a lease with a requirement that you are going to purchase. But in this case, I would say I'm going to buy the house. I will fix it up. And that's going to be my down payment, right? And then I have the right to buy it once it is completed for so much money. Or you go into the deal with a joint venture with them, and it's a joint venture contract where you are saying you're going to put up the house and pay anything on the house for, taxes, insurance, etc. And I'm going to do the repairs, and, this is what I'm going to put into it. And then we're going to sell it, and we're going to, once I get my repair money out, we're going to split the profits.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was thinking. It was a JV contract.
Yep.
Yep, and we have done that in again, Indiana. Our contractor's awesome there. So I don't remember the particulars, but he brought the house and the work. We provided the funds for that, and then we sold it for a good profit, and then just split it. So once everybody was paid back, then we split it on a JV agreement.
Nice.
So that worked well.
Well, thank you so much for your clarification. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat. Can you see those?
Is it better to do a lease option? I think that's Charlene. Like any it just depends house by house, I think. We look at every deal and kind of go over best case, worst case, and then just kind of figure out where it works and how it works and what's the better thing to do with each house. I think that's kind of how we view that. And what are your thoughts on current? Okay, what are your thoughts on? I guess I should read that. What are your current thoughts on the BRRRR with the current interest rates in Baltimore City? I have found that rents do not lead to cash flow. total transparency, we've never burred anything really. I don't like to be over leveraged and very conservative. So I know a lot of people, we know a lot of people that were doing the burrs with Airbnbs and pretty much getting their ass handed to them right now. It's like they went and they pulled out all the equity and refinanced and all that stuff, and then they went and bought another one, and then they went and bought another one, and then they went and bought another one. So now they have all these Airbnbs. They're way over leveraged. The interest rates went up. They can't, do the balloon. So all this stuff. I'm not a big fan of the burr unless the interest rates are right, you're cash flowing, and you have an exit strategy to kind of get out of that if the interest rates continue to climb, or because rents, like down here in Sarasota, they're going nuts. Like the rents are just crazy, and at some point they can't just keep going up. Everybody says they're going to go up, but you're going to price people out. So I think they're going to level off, and you have to make sure that you're buying the right way. So that's my thoughts on.
Sharon, can I just give more information about what I meant by my questions? So I
Sure.
have a house and I rent it out. Couple house and rent it out, and now I just don't want to deal with the tenants. So that was my question. It's like, I'm just tired of like, you know, deal with the tenants, kind of like get them out and have another one coming in and just kind of, it's like 6 months, a year. I just kind of like tired of it. So I own this house at least 7 years already, and it's a free and clear. And so is it better for me to do is kind of like lease to purchase? This is a young couple, and I don't know what their financial
Right. So you think they would want to stay? Is that?
yeah, they love my house. But I want to sell it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to
if
deal
the
with the tenants anymore because
right, if the numbers right, if the numbers make sense, and it's not something you want to flip and then do a retail sale, yeah, I would do that all day. And that's typically like, we kind of stumbled into the lease option stuff too, because we didn't like the renters. It just seemed like we like in Baltimore, like one house, we over rehabbed it, but it was all pretty, and they tore it up, and that just didn't sit well with me. So like some of the renter stuff just and that was when it was like, we had somebody and they were like, God, I wish we could buy the house. And it was like, well, if we bought it, then we won't have to deal with it. Was pretty much you're just the bank or the lease option. And then so yeah, I would try that all day if the retail sale doesn't make sense and they're set there and they like the house.
Yeah,
Just, you know,
I would make sure that I did that I did credit checks and things like
Mhm.
that on them. And I would personally, if it was me, I'd prefer to do some kind of an owner finance or a lease with an option. Because then I don't have to pay all that capital gain. It's a rental. So if you sell it, you got a hefty capital gain tax. Whereas if you are selling it on a lease with an option, you're paying a little bit extra every year, and you can take depreciation off of it. You can also take some of the expenses away. So your tax implications are not nearly as bad, but you want to make sure these people can actually afford it and are and I would get a decent down payment from them, $15,000-$20,000, to make sure that they have some skin in the game. But I don't know what Jane and Sharon would say, or James.
Yep, same. Well, and when I said like people are credit challenged and you're taking a risk, like we look at the overall picture as like we're not going to take somebody, like some people's credit are just bad because they don't pay their bills. Like my car was repoed, I got evicted 5 times, or whatever that is. But like we have met some seriously, like one stint in the hospital, they didn't have insurance, and $40,000 later, they're just trying to pay off the hospital, and they take a little ding. I think student loans are another one. We used to work with a credit repair company that, you know, we kind of dabbled with that on the side. We didn't really like the way that, you know, but we learned enough that like we can direct people to kind of, you know, fix their credit and, you know, kind of, I know there's like people out there that'll help you fix it. And we worked for one of those, but so, you know, you just kind of try to help them fix the credit and, you know, get their credit where then they can go refinance out, which is always the goal is to, you know, and then you've helped them and, you know, you've sold your house. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for being here. Any other questions? I think that's all I saw there. And we do have, we still have that free webinar up that's, on creative financing. I don't have the James the Miracle Man will probably find that link, but I think it's like a 2-hour on some creative financing and some different strategies, besides the ones we went over here. And then obviously there's some classes on our website that you might want to take a look at.
Find the links.
I have it on my email. I guess I could do that. Oh, this technology. One day I'm gonna get it.
Let's see. Think that work. So there's the webinar for the multiple spread. That's a really, really good video. There's a lot of really good information on there that these ladies put together. There's the academy.
Can you show it? Can you show the link?
Yeah, it's right here in the chat. I just typed it in.
Yeah, it's in there.
Can you guys see that? The chat?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. You found it faster than I did.
You know, it's funny because I learn something new, or I try and learn something new every day. And just the whole part about having the owner finance contract revert to a rental for lack of payment. Oh my gosh, that's huge. It might take you what, a year and a half to foreclose on someone, as opposed to, you know, depending on where you are, 2, 3, 4 months to get somebody out for non-payment.
Yes, sir. Ask me how I know.
I learned something
Well,
from
and,
you.
yeah, this is like, you know, hot off the press, really.
Mhm.
So in Maryland, we had and I won't give any particulars as it's ongoing, but you know, we had a house and, you know, he was adamant that he wanted to close with the title company and do it a different way, you know, and typically we do our contract and our this and our that. So we had the attorney, you know, we didn't have a particular attorney in that jurisdiction. So we had a referral. Basically he drew up the contract and, you know, so it looked good. It was a close, but the deed is now in that young man's name. Absolute nightmare. Hasn't paid in a year. And then, was, you know, the jurisdiction was offering help and we went back and forth with them and they kept saying, oh, we're going to cut you a check. We're going to cut you a check. And then finally, when everything was done, 9 months later, life is good. They have the payoff. They have everything they need. And they're like, whoops, ran out of funds. So we're not going to do that.
Oh,
So now we actually have to go through the foreclosure with this fella. And had we used our contract, you know, he didn't pay, we would have just did a quick eviction and that would have been that. But now it's a foreclosure.
wow.
So go with your gut.
Mhm.
Don't defer from your paperwork or what you what you think is the right way to go. And then, you know, if there's a battle in court because of your paperwork, because, you know, and still, you know, because we're in different states, we have to know who does what in what state and what, you know, and I think Nicole has said this, she invests in 11 different states. I think so do we. And Maryland is number 11 or 12, probably. Actually, it's just where we want out, but. Cool. Any more questions? Hey, Anita.
One of
Hi.
the
I just have one comment, actually. You were talking, the example you were using about Florida with people having the big assessments. we're in a condo from the 60s on the beach in Florida. So right now we do have assessments of about 30,000 coming up. And in that scenario, there's actually another benefit to kind of a bonus when you were talking about the option, is that a lot of these older condos right on the beach, they are really being looked at by developers. So a lot of developers keep approaching these different condos. And so within a few years, a lot of those condos are going to get great, offers by the developer. Great compared to what what they're going for right now. Not great if you have to move to someplace else and buy something. But that's kind of an interesting thing, is that you're not only, if you paid for their assessment, as for the option, you have a really good chance that somebody's going to come in and try and buy the condos and give you a really good amount for it.
Yes, that is, yep, that's all kind, and it's helping a lot of the senior folks that, I know the one that we were speaking of, from Monday, like that, they really had, and, we had the same situation with a condo in Daytona, so ask us how we know. Special assessments came down the pike, and this was pre-Surfside, that, a lot of people couldn't afford them, so they went into foreclosure, and then the HOA, they couldn't pay the HOA. The HOA is usually in first position in Florida, so that's an easy foreclosure for them, and then then the condos got sold. It also causes, our condo in Daytona, they were just about ready to get a loan to pay off all the construction and whatever, and then each person would have had, less of an assessment. It would have been through the loan, and it would have been at a I don't know, 2.9%. COVID hit, and then they were like, whoops, not doing that right now. So they pulled the loan back, and then a lot of people, there was defaults, and then we couldn't get a loan. The association couldn't get a loan because there were too many defaults, and that put a lot of people in, harm's way. And we know probably 10 senior folks that was they were on a fixed income. That's where they were living. The rest of the building was investors. So, it didn't hurt them as much, but a lot of those folks had to move. They couldn't afford the assessments. They lost their place, etc. So definitely that would have been good for a developer to come in and kind of do that option thing. So good point, Anita.
Always in the back of your mind, remember that condos are the first things to lose value when a downturn, and the last thing to recover when things come back. So I'm always just kind of leery of condos, frankly.
And that's funny. That was like our first, that was actually our first real estate deal, and we weren't investors. We just were looking for a place to go back and forth. So what a rude awakening, and I'm surprised we're still here, because that would have been a slap of light bulb should have went, phew, that's a bad idea, but worked out okay. Cool. Any other questions?
Nice job, you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everything you talked about, even everything that Nicole talked about. One of the things Nicole brought up was about when you're doing a short sale, make sure that you can figure out what they're doing wrong and if you can fix it, right? So kind of the same thing with the master lease. If someone can't rent out their property or whatever it is, and you're going to take it over on a master lease, I guess you need to figure out why they can't rent it out. And are you going to be able to do something different so you can rent it out, so you're not stuck in the exact same position 6 months down the road? And pretty much, it's interesting because everything you guys talked about in terms of all the different strategies here, let me just share this real quick, is actually on, where'd it go? I just had it up, hold on. I'll just do it this way. Is actually on the site. So can you guys see this, the site?
Yep.
Okay, so, oh, I forgot to show you a great picture. Hold on. Let me get the picture.
That's all right.
There they are.
Move.
Awesome picture. Love that picture. All right. So, but it's interesting. So, you talked about marketing and stuff like that. So that's in here in terms of rate. Oh, so where'd it go? I just found it. So funding meals, different ways to do that. How to market for leads on a budget, marketing blueprints. So how to find them, how to wholesale. There's stuff in here about subject twos, There's stuff for work for equity, which I guess it sounds like the contractor is putting money in instead of paying a full rent. Here's short sales that Nicole was talking about. So all this stuff is actually on here, which is interesting because a lot of times we just deal with one strategy. But I think you guys covered like 50% of the stuff that's in here, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's just, that's just a brief overview. Obviously, there's a lot more to everything, it's not quite that easy as it sounds, but and you got to make sure your paperwork's right and through the attorney and all that stuff. And I think we have, I actually think we have some of that stuff in there too. But a lot of the people's on our website have been, they're practitioners and they got a lot of experience, and we always try to
Nope.
um
Did you guys lock up?